Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. This is a class for June 4th, 5th, and 6th. Let's go over today's activities. The first thing that we're going to do, as usual, is to check our homework, which was workbook pages 107 and 108 with teacher Rafa. So guys, make sure you have answered this before you watch it, okay? Don't cheat. Then we're moving on to FCE practice with teacher Laurita. We're going to work on the reading part 3 for practice test 5, okay? She assigned some vocabulary exercises last class. She's going to check them with you, and then we're also going to check reading part 3 of practice test 5, okay? And today we're starting unit 10, which is called life changing. We're going to be talking about some medicine, about illnesses, and about the process of recovering, okay? Which is really cool. And finally, we're going to assign your homework, okay? So guys, let's get started. Let's move on now with teacher Rafa.
Hello guys, here again to help you check your homework. It's always a pleasure. So, let's get started. For exercise 1, it says, circle the option that correctly completes each expression. For number 1, it says, now I know which, what, about you might be thinking. The answer is what you might be thinking. 2. I realize there's, that's, have a perception that would be theirs. 3. I'm obviously not to deny, denial, denying that. The answer is denying. I'm obviously not denying that. 4. To begin with, of, about, consider the fact that. The answer would be with. 5. On, above, top, plus, of that. It will be on top of that. 6. Let's do not, or cannot, not forget that. 7. And finally, it's important, note, noting, or to note. It will be to note that. For exercise 2, it says, match the sentence halves. Number 1, it says, let's not forget that anyone would be letter C, can be affected by a natural disaster. 2. Among many people there's a perception that aid is mismanaged. 3. I'm obviously not denying the fact that evacuation are difficult to carry out. 4. And it's obviously, to begin with, consider the fact that there are widespread food shortages. For exercise 3, it says, put the story in order. Write numbers 1 through 7 in the spaces provided. Use the underlined expressions to help you. For example, number 1 would be letter C. 2 years ago, I decided to look for a job in disaster relief. Even though I didn't have very much experience, I was very motivated. Number 2 would be letter G. Now I work as an emergency response coordinator. When there is a crisis, my job is to get people the help they need as quickly as possible. Number 3 would be letter D. To begin, I organize food, clothing, transportation, and health services. Later, my team and I help people try to rebuild their lives. Number 4 would be letter A. Now, I know you're probably thinking, isn't that a difficult line of work? Number 5 would be letter F. I'm obviously not denying that. It's hard, it's very stressful at times. On the other hand, it's also very fulfilling. 6. On top of that, I really feel like I'm making a difference very often. The people that I meet have lost everything. And the last one, number 7, it's letter E. It's important to remember that anyone can be affected by a disaster. One day, we might need someone to help us too. So, for exercise 4, it says that we have to complete the sentences. So, for example, A. On today's program, we have the opportunity to speak to Angela Park. She is an expert in crisis management. Mrs. Park, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you. Today, I want to speak to you about an important issue. What is that? The need to be prepared in the event of an emergency. Now, I know what you might. Everyone already knows how important it is to be prepared. Well, I'm obviously not going to deny that. The thing is, many people think they know what to do in a crisis, but when the time comes, they realize that they didn't take the necessary steps. I see, and by then perhaps it's too late. Exactly. So, what do you recommend? To begin with, all people should have a disaster supplies kit ready in their homes. On top of essentials like food and water, people should stock batteries, flashlights, and a mobile phone chargers. Let's not forget that a first aid kit is also extremely important. I see. It's also important to keep a list of emergency telephone numbers written down somewhere. Often people forget to do this, and then they have no way of getting in touch when they need help. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And are there any final points you want to note? To the next exercise, guys. I forget to say that we are skipping exercise 5, guys, because that one, it's about making notes and sharing them with the group, and for the moment we can't do that. So my recommendation would be that you should take some notes about what you think it is important of this lesson. So, number 6. Read the sentences from a letter of application, then choose the correct option. Write I for introducing a subject that you want to discuss, or E for explaining your suitability. Number 1. I believe I can make a difference because I'm very enthusiastic and I'm a fast learner. It will be letter E. 2. With regard to qualifications, I took a first aid course at school last year. It will be letter I. 3. I feel I will be suitable because I am hardworking and dependable. This will be letter E. As far as language skills go, my English is quite good, and I'm also learning Japanese. Will be letter E. I'm also prepared to take on extra responsibilities because I believe it is very important to be flexible. It will be letter E, guys. 6. With regard to my ability, I finished my exams in late June. Will be letter I. For the next exercise, guys, it says, match the topics with the sentences from a young man's letter of application for a voluntary position. 1. Basic information about himself would be letter D. My name is Antonio Conti. I'm 18. I'm from Naples in the south of Italy. 2. His personal traits would be letter F. I have a positive attitude and I'm very organized. In adaptation, I have always been passionate about movies. Number 3, His plans for the future will be letter G. In September, I'll be starting at college. 4. His skills and experience. My level of English is very good, and I also worked out at a local movie theater last summer. 5. How he found out about the post. Letter B. I came across the advertisement on your website today. 6. Main reason for writing will be letter A. I'm writing in relation to the opportunity for volunteers to work at this year's film festival in Edinburgh. 7. Requesting information will be letter C. I was wondering if you could send more details about the post and instructions on how to apply. And last one, what he is doing now, it's letter E. It says, I'm currently in my final year of high school. For the next exercise, it says, write the missing words to complete the letter of application for a voluntary post. The first letter have been provided to you. Hello, I'm writing in response to the ad for volunteers to visit the elderly in our local hospital. I came across your ad on the community website. Please let me know what I need to do to apply. My name is Lisa Liu. I'm 16 and I'm a student at the International High School in Beijing, as biology is my best subject. I would like to become a doctor in the future. I am keen to volunteer for 2 reasons. First, I think it's very worthwhile program and I would like to do something nice for the elderly in our community. Second, I would value spending time in a hospital environment and observing how patients are cared for with regard to what I would bring to the program. Everyone says I'm a very friendly person and I believe that would make me a suitable volunteer for a hospital's visits. In addition, I have quite a lot of confidence, so I find it easy to chat to others and I enjoy hearing their stories. I'm also very reliable, although I don't have any formal experience. When my aunt broke her leg last year, I visited her at home every day for a month, and she said I was really good company. I hope this convinces you of my suitability for the program, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Best wishes, Lisa. So, for the last exercise, guys, it says, read Lisa Liu's letter of application in activity 8 again. Is the information true or false or not given? So, you know how this works, guys. So, for number 1, it says, this voluntary program is specifically for visiting old people in the hospital. This is true, guys, because it's one of the first things that it says the note. So, number 2, Lisa saw the ad on a community website. False. She requests some information about applying. True. Lisa is in her final year at school. Not given. 5. She wants to be a doctor. True. 6. She would like to volunteer for the program because she has lots of free time. Not given. 7. Lisa spends some time describing her personality. This is true. She also gives details of her past experience as a hospital volunteer. This is false, guys, because she says that she has no professional experience. So, we are skipping also exercise number 10, guys, because that one is that you have to write an essay, and we cannot check the essay with you right now because we're not in group. So we're gonna leave it until here. So I hope you guys have done your homework, and I hope you're getting every time better at this, because that's how it works, guys. So I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
Hey guys. Right, well, today we're going to begin working on practice test number 5, rating part 3, on the answers for the vocabulary section. Working on this activity, the instructions are to match the nouns with the pictures. So for number 1, we said that this was for proportion, and as you can see in the picture, we have 20 versus 80, men versus women. So this is the proportion. For number 2, we have necessity, which is, here we can see that it's a scheme with basic needs, or for survival. We have air, sleep, food, clothing, shelter, safety, and water. For number 3, we have small change, which is a picture of the coins that we have here. For number 4, we have savings, which, as you can see, refers to the money that you put in the bank. Then we have number 5, purse. Number 6, a motto. In this case, it's work for a cause, not for applause. This is an example of a motto. Then we have budget. This is a lot of images showing a person or somebody wanting to calculate or estimate a budget. And then we have number 8, vending machine. Great, so for the following exercise, it says match the nouns with the pictures. So we said that the first one was circumstance. We already have that one, which is a situation. Now for number 2, across, we have amount of money saved in the bank. And the correct answer is savings. For number 3, a small bag used for carrying money. And the correct answer is purse. 5, financial plan is a budget. 6, apart is a synonym for proportion. Number 7, machine, from which you can buy small items such as chocolate or crisps. This is a vending machine. And then we have number 9, thing that is needed. This is a necessity. We saw the list in the scheme. It's just an example of the basic necessities. And then for the words that are classified as down, we have coins, which is a small change, number 4. Number 8, we have a short phrase expressing a rule, which is the motto. Okay guys, for this following exercise, you had to match phrasal verbs to their definitions. We have 4 different ones, and we have 3 possible definitions. We had said that 2 of these had the same meaning. So for mount up, the correct definition is to become larger. Stick to is to keep to a decision. Build up, also to become larger. And take notice of is to pay attention to. Now that we know the definitions, we can easily fill in the blanks of these following examples. For number 1, we have Sophie must stick to her diet if she wants to lose weight. So as you can see in the picture, she's rejecting the cupcake. So she is sticking to her diet. In the next picture, it says she exercises daily to build or mount up her strength. So remember that these are exchangeable or interchangeable because they mean exactly the same thing. So she's working on increasing her strength. The next one, try to take notice of your surroundings while you travel through Africa, which means to see everything, to pay attention to everything that you're looking at. Okay, in this slide we have the first one. It says her mom tried to build or mount her confidence up. In this case, you had to separate the phrasal verb, which means that she tried to increase her confidence on making her believe that she could ride her bike. The next one, it says everyone will stick to the plan that we agreed on, which means to follow the plan. And we have the next one, did anyone where we parked the car take notice of where we parked the car, or pay attention to, realize, or see where we parked the car? Fantastic. Guys, in this following exercise, you had to use the correct forms of the verbs to fill in the blanks. So we already saw last class that there were 2 new verbs that are part of reading part 3, and it was tempt, and the second one was cover. So let's try to fill in this activity. It says number 1, I was so tempted to cheat on my math exam that I even wrote a cheat sheet to do it. Remember that a cheat sheet is like a piece of paper where you write the answers and you use to cheat on the exam. But then I realized that if I got caught, I would fail and wouldn't be able to cover the cost for having to resit the exam without using up all my savings. I had been saving for 6 months to buy a new bike and had been tempted to purchase many things, but I hadn't. I almost bought a baseball bat last month because I really liked it, but I resisted. So I basically decided not to cheat. I had too much to lose. Okay guys, so here in this part of the exercise we have an activity using phrases or expressions. So we said that we had to match them with their correct definition and then match them with the picture that best illustrates what they mean. So there's only 5 pictures, as you can see. So one of these phrases or expressions does not have a matching picture, but the rest of them do. So let's work on this together. We said that last class, the first one was I could kick myself, and the correct definition is I realize I did something wrong and wish I had avoided it. I wish I hadn't done it, right? So this is a picture regretting whatever the person did. Then we have save for a rainy day, and the definition is to save money for difficult times, and the correct picture is the one with the piggy bank. Okay, which is to save money, right? Down the drain, the definition is wasted or lost for no good reason, and the picture is the one at the bottom. Put into perspective is to compare to other things so as to judge something fairly, or compare it to something in a just or fair way, as we can see here. To put into perspective. Keep track of is to know where everything is, as in the picture on top. And lastly, for the sake of is because of, and this is the expression that does not have a picture, a matching picture. Now that we know the meanings of the phrases and expressions for reading part 3, let's try to fill in together the following sentences. Remember that we have our word bank on the right of the slide. So we had already said that the first one was keep track of. So bank statements can help you keep track of how much money you're spending, which means to keep a registration or keep count of something, right? In this case, money. For number 2, if you put your problems into perspective, you compare them to the problems that other people around the world have, which means to compare them to something that is fair or just. Okay, number 3, I stopped smoking for the sake of my health, which means I stopped smoking for or to benefit my health. Number 4, I could kick myself for confiding in him and telling him all my secrets because he betrayed me. So I regret doing this. Number 5, all my efforts went down the drain when my computer turned off and I hadn't saved my work, which means that it was all lost. Number 6, I recommend that you only buy what you need and leave the rest on your bank account so that you can save for a rainy day, for a moment where you might need the money. Number 7, the number of deaths due to coronavirus have to be put into perspective because they are not as many as the deaths caused by other diseases. Number 8, the small local restaurants are going to go down the drain because there are no customers due to the pandemic. Number 9, it is difficult to keep track of all the new scientific discoveries. And number 10, don't compromise your beliefs for the sake of being accepted. Okay guys, now we're going to go over the answers for reading part 3 on practice test number 5, page 106. And just remember that it is from questions 16 through 30. So let's begin. Which person says a change in their circumstance helped them learn something? Number 16, the correct answer is letter D, Olivia. Why? Because the circumstance was that her dad lost his job. Which person says they decided to spend only a proportion of what they earned? This is Megan, letter A, which was 20% of what she earned, she saved. Which person says working hard for their money prevents them from spending it all? So this is letter E, number 18, Charlie. And it's he talks about how he remembers how difficult it was to earn the money that he had. That's how he prevented himself from spending it. Which person says they regret spending money on things that weren't worth it? So this is number 19, Laura, letter B. So why? She talked about how she realized when she wrote down everything she bought and that it came up to 30 pounds on very insignificant and small things. The next one, which person says they are aware of others' spending habits? This is number 20, Charlie. letter E. So he talks about how he sees other people buying rubbish magazines and sweets. All right, number 21. Which person says keeping a record of the money they have is very important? So this is letter C, Jamie, and he talks about, it's in the part where he talks about keeping a budget or a limit on his spending. Which person says they often forget how to spend their money? So this is number 22. Letter B is Laura. She talks about how she spends her money on small things, and then she forgets what she spent the money on. Okay, asking a question. Which person says asking a question can help put spending into perspective? So this is number 24. Number 23, I'm sorry, is also letter B and is also talking about Laura. So it says, do I really need this? This is a question that she asks herself before she buys something. Do I really need this? Yes, no. And if I don't, then I don't buy it. Number 24. Which person says they didn't understand the importance of money? This is the correct answer, letter D, number 24, Olivia. She didn't have to work for it. So, until she got a job, she realized the importance of money, the value of money. Number 25. Which person says they decided to change their bad spending habits? This is letter A, Megan. And this is where she talks about how she opened an account and started saving money. Number 26. Which person says spending money on necessities must be the priority? This is letter C, Jamie. Because he talks about how this is his motto. When something is a person's motto, it means that it's something that he lives by, something that he prioritizes. Which person says making just a small change can have a big effect? This is letter A, Megan, number 27. Because she says that in the end, she realized that she was saving a lot of money by saving 20% of her salary. Number 28. Which person says they're often tempted to spend money? Correct answer is letter E, Charlie, where he talks about how he had an urge to spend and he frequently gets that urge, but he stops himself. Okay, which person says once they make a decision, they stick to it? This is number 29, letter C is Jamie, and it says that if he says that he will save £5, he will definitely save £5. So he's very determined and disciplined. Which person says working made them more independent? This is letter D, Olivia, number 30. And she just directly speaks about this in the text. How she became more mature, more independent, and more responsible. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay, guys. So let's get started with today's activities from our student book. And as you can see on page 116 and 117, we have an image of a surgery, right? Now, if we look at the very bottom, it says that the Vinci surgical system allows surgeons to carry out difficult procedures by looking at a screen. So as you can see, today we're going to be talking about some type of medicine, illnesses, and ways of recovering as well. Okay? Now, have you ever heard of the Da Vinci surgical system? It is probably something not so common to hear, but it is something really cool, guys. The Da Vinci surgical system, shown in the photo, is a robotic system made by an American company and designed to conduct complex surgery using a minimally invasive approach. A surgeon controls the system from a console. There are many advantages to this way of working, including reduced pain and discomfort, faster recovery time, reduced blood loss and risk of infection, and minimal scarring. The system's name is meant to evoke Leonardo da Vinci, whose study of human anatomy contributed to the design of the first known robot in history. Okay, so as you can see, it is something really cool because people who are have their surgery in this form, they have a minimally invasive procedure, right? It's not going to hurt. They're probably going to recover way faster than if they had been performed a normal surgery. This is something I haven't heard about this in Mexico. We might have it. I haven't heard about it, but maybe this is something completely advanced. But the most similar thing we might have is a laser, right? Laser surgery. Okay, guys, so let's look at exercise number 1. And it says, look at the photo and discuss the question. So what do you think is happening? As we can see, they're performing a surgery, right? What do you think has happened to the patient? Maybe they have a stomach ache and something inside their stomach is causing them that pain, so it has to get removed, right? How might an operation like this have been carried out in the past? Well, in the past, they would just cut the patient open, right? No anesthesia, no way to calm their pain. It was something kind of even risky, really complicated, right? Okay, great. So guys, today we're going to be talking about that. On exercise number 2, it says to complete the sentences with the words in bold. So let's go ahead and look at number 1 and we're going to do number 2 together, okay? As you can see, there's 3 example words. In number 1, we have action, health, and leg. What we have to do is to place those words correctly into the sentence given, okay? They have been removed from the sentence and we need to place them back in the sentence. So it says, I slipped on the stairs and broke my leg. So I was out of action for a while, but I'm back to full health now. Okay, so the 3 words that we needed to use are marked in blue. Let's go ahead and do number 2 together. We need to use the word cure, drugs, and symptoms. So there's no for it, but she takes to control the, and she leads a fairly normal life. So we're missing those 3 words. They have been removed from the sentence. Where do you think they go? There's no, they don't precisely need to be in order, okay? So there's no cure for it, but she takes what to control the what. She takes drugs to control the symptoms. And she leads a fairly normal life. Okay, so guys, what you're going to do the same for numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I know they're quite a lot, so please answer them in your notebooks. Remember, these 3 words have been removed. You need to place them back into the sentence and write them down in your notebook, okay? So as soon as you finish, you can pause the video right now, and as soon as you finish, you can come back to it and check it, so we can check it together, okay? Go. Okay, now we're back. Let's go ahead and check number 3. Number 3 said we need to use the word injury, operation, and physical therapy. So we have, it was quite a serious wrist, but thanks to the and all the I had, it's almost as good as new. So as you can see, guys, we can easily identify where we're missing an idea or a word, right? So it was quite a serious wrist injury, right? But thanks to the operation and all the what physical therapy I had, it's almost as good as new. That's a really good expression, right? Almost as good as new. Now number 4, we have detected, made, and spread. So luckily they blank, or I mean, we don't have a blank, I'm sorry, but you can easily identify, right? So the cancer early before it to his lungs and he a full recovery. So luckily they detected the cancer early before it spread to his lungs and he made a full recovery. See, I'm telling you, this is kind of easy, right? We can easily identify where the word goes. Number 5, we have bleeding, damage, intensive care. So they managed to stop but he was in for days. I'm sorry, there's no, I'm marking the blank where I think it goes, right? Thankfully didn't leave any permanent brain. So they they managed to stop the what? The bleeding, but he was in what? In intensive care for days. Thankfully, it didn't leave any permanent brain damage. Yes. Okay, so that's how it goes. Number 6, we have normal therapy and stroke. So he couldn't really speak after but he had a lot of speech, and he's more or less back to now. So he couldn't really speak after the stroke, but he had a lot of speech therapy, and he's more or less back to normal now. Number 7, we have lost thing and slammed. So the tip of my finger after I hit in a car door. To be honest, I hardly about it now. So I lost the tip of my finger. See, I'm reading it. I lost the tip of my finger after I slammed it in a car door. To be honest, I hardly think about it now. See? Good. Number 8, we have car accident, waist, and wheelchair. So he started playing basketball after he was left paralyzed from the down in A. So he started playing basketball. He started playing wheelchair basketball, which is sport, right? After he was left paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident. Then we have antibiotics, chest, and prescribed. So we have she said I just had an infection and nothing life-threatening. She me some and it cleared up after a week. So she said I just had a chest infection and nothing life-threatening. Remember that life-threatening is that threats your life, so nothing that risks your life. She prescribed me some antibiotics and it cleared up after a week. And number 10, feel, have, and keep down. I an upset stomach and I could hardly any food. It was horrible, but I lot better now. So I had an upset stomach and I could hardly keep down any food. It was horrible, but I feel a lot better now. Okay, guys. So this was kind of easy, right? It was just to identify where each word went, where we had to place each word. And by reading the sentence, that was easy. So now we're going to use the sentences in exercise number 2 to answer number 3. Okay, so for example, it says work in groups and look at your completed sentence in activity 2 and find. Okay, so what we need to do is we have to find 8 parts of the body, at least 5 nouns that are medical problems, 4 adjectives describing illnesses or injuries, and at least 5 phrases which show that someone has recovered from something. So guys, remember, we're using the sentences from exercise number 2, and what we need to do is to complete number 3 using those sentences, okay? So what you can do, guys, in your notebooks, you're going to draw a table like this one, and you're going to answer it like that, okay? Draw this table, do this table in your notebooks, and you're going to make the list there, okay? Please pause the video while you work, and once you finish, we'll check it together. Okay, pretty much I think we should be finished, or you should have been finished. Play the video again, right? Okay, guys, so what 8 parts of the body were mentioned in exercise number 2? The first one was the brain, then we had the chest, then we had the leg, then finger, lungs, stomach, waist, and wrist, right? Those 8 parts of the body were mentioned. Now, what nouns about medical problems were mentioned? You have to mention at least 5, and I think there were 6, okay? So the first one was bleeding, right? Then we have brain damage. Then they talked about cancer, about an infection, about an injury, and a stroke. Okay? Now, some adjectives describing illnesses or injuries. So the adjectives, one was life-threatening, another one was paralyzed. Then we also talked about permanent and serious. Okay? Now, which phrases show that someone has recovered from something? So one that was very obvious was a full recovery. Then when you feel a lot better, something that went back to normal, and cleared up, which means it disappeared. And the next one and I even mentioned to you, was as good as new. Okay, so when someone tells you, how are you doing? I mean, after a surgery, after an accident or something, they can ask you, how's everything? Oh, I'm good as new. Okay, so that means that everything went back to normal. Everything is good. Great. So these are really nice expressions or phrases that we can use to make our English sound more advanced. Okay. Now, moving on to exercise number 4, we have some questions which say to discuss in pairs. But I'm going to discuss them with you, and maybe you can take some notes in your notebook. Okay. So, have you ever broken any bones, and what happened? I have never broken any bones, luckily. If I were to break them now, I would probably die because I'm really scared of being in a hospital. So I would probably die now. Not for me. When was the last time you had a day off of school due to illness, and why? So I don't know if I've told you, but I suffer from migraine headaches. So when I have a migraine headache, I ask permission to not go to school, or to stay home or to go home, because I feel really, really bad. And I think the last time that happened was in January. I don't remember precisely. Okay, so that's about me. Okay, but I would like for you guys to think about yourselves and to come up with some ideas as well. Okay, if you want to, you can write them down in your notebooks. Okay, so what do you do to recover from an illness? Are you a good patient? So, for example, T.Efren doesn't like to take any pills. I don't like to take medicine. I don't, because especially when I have a migraine, if I take something, I feel really, really bad, and I feel like vomiting. So I don't like to take medicine. But are you a good patient? Do you follow all the recommendations from a doctor? That's the best thing to do, right? Now, what stories have you heard of people recovering from illnesses or injuries? Maybe the most common thing we hear is that it's really complicated to be back, to be good as new, right? Because especially after an accident, if someone has a broken leg or something, only if they're young, they can recover easily. But if not, it takes them a while, right? That can be kind of bad for them. That's what I think. But guys, you can also think about some of the ideas, write them down in your notebooks, and we'll share them hopefully very soon. Okay? Now, for the next exercise, let's move on. We're going to listen to Jamie and Clara talking about movies, and we're going to answer the following questions. So we have number 1, what 4 movies do they talk about? What is the connection between the movies? What doubts do they have about recommending the first 3 movies? Okay, so we're going to listen, and then we are going to check together. Okay, so let's listen, guys, please.
So, Jaime, last week we had an email from a listener, Hugo, who is recovering at home from an injury and wanted suggestions for inspiring films to watch.
And we got quite a few.
Absolutely.
So, Clara, first up is 127 Hours.
You don't think that's too much?
You think? For those who don't know it, this is the true story of Aaron Ralston, who was climbing in Utah when he slipped, fell down a small canyon, and got his arm trapped between a rock and the wall. He couldn't move it. He was in the middle of nowhere, and no one could help because he hadn't told anyone where he was going.
Not the best situation to be in.
No. So basically, after trying everything to free his arm, the only thing he could do was cut it off.
I know, it's horrible.
It is horrible, but they managed to film it in a way which isn't over the top, and you do learn his life went back to normal after the accident. Considering it's 90 minutes watching someone who can't move, it's very gripping.
That's true. It's the same with that film about the guy who had a stroke and was left completely paralyzed and unable to speak.
The diving bell and the butterfly?
Yeah, an amazing story. It's based on his book, which he actually managed to dictate by only moving his eye. Incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. But sorry, the movie didn't do it for me.
No?
Bit dull.
Whatever. I liked it.
What about Frida? This is about Frida Kahlo, the Mexican artist who suffered intense pain all her life after a terrible bus accident, and...
Jaime, we're looking for inspiration, not pain and misery.
No, it is inspiring. I mean, she managed to deal with that pain in the end and was able to turn it into incredible art.
I suppose, but...
You know, she succeeded in becoming a world-renowned artist. That's pretty amazing.
I know. It's just that the film...
What?
I guess it depends if you're into art.
It's not your thing, then.
Not exactly. I prefer something like The Fundamentals of Caring.
Oh, yeah. Now that's a great choice.
So basically, the film is about this guy who becomes a care assistant, and his first job is with a teenage boy who has a disease that weakens his muscles and has left him in a wheelchair. Put like that, it doesn't sound great, and it's not even about him recovering.
No, but it kind of is, because he learns to make the most of his life. In fact, they both do.
Which is what I love about it.
And it's really funny.
Exactly. At least we've been able to agree on one movie.
Okay guys, so let's go ahead and discuss this together. Number one, what 4 movies did they talk about? They talked about 127 Hours, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Frida, and The Fundamentals of Caring, right? So what is the connection about these movies? Have you watched any of them? So the connection is that they're all different, or they're inspiring stories, right? They're all inspiring stories about dealing with illness or injury. Some of them are really, like for example, 127 Hours for me would be really, I wouldn't be able to watch it. Very strong. Number 3, it says, what doubts do they have about recommending the first 3 movies? So what they think is whether stories that deal with pain are appropriate for someone recovering from an injury. So they think about maybe people in a hospital or maybe someone that is recovering, and if these movies would be inspiring to them or not. They have some are not so clear or inspiring, let's say. They agreed on one at the end, right? So moving on, guys, to exercise number 6, it says to work in pairs and complete the sentences with 3 words in each blank. Listen again and check your answers. So what you can do is to go back to the audio and play it again, okay, to answer this exercise. I'm going to give you the first answer, but you need to go back and listen, okay? So it says number 1, he says, he was in the blank and no one could help because he hadn't told anyone where he was going. So he was in the middle of nowhere, okay? So guys, please go back to the audio, and if necessary, to play it again. If not, please pause the video and play it again once you finish answering this exercise, okay? Okay, so let's check. Number 2, it says, it is horrible, but they managed to film it in a way which isn't over the top, right? Number 3, it's the same with that film about the guy who had a stroke and was left completely paralyzed and unable to speak. Number 4, it's based on his book, which he actually managed to dictate by only moving his eye. Number 5, yeah, it is incredible, but sorry, the movie didn't do it for me. And this is about Frida Kahlo, the Mexican artist who suffered intense pain all her life. after a terrible bus accident. Okay, great. So let's move on, guys, to exercise number 7. Hopefully this was clear. It was just to listen and complete. Exercise number 7 says to work in pairs and discuss these questions. So have you ever seen any of the movies Jamie and Clara talked about? If yes, what do you think about them? I just watched The Fundamentals of Caring. I think it was a really nice movie. Funny and sad at the same time, but I liked it a lot. What about you? Can you think of any other movies that could fit the same category of as those discussed? Are they based on true stories and what happened? I'm really sorry, guys. I'm not a big movie fan, and right now I cannot think of any other movie that is probably inspiring. But I mean, I know you may, right? So have them in mind so we can discuss them later. Okay, great. So moving on to exercise number 8. My perspective says, think again about what you do when recovering from something. Answer the questions. So, would these stories inspire you to act differently, and why? Maybe they would bring your spirit up, right? Maybe your spirits can be risen by these movies, right? Number 2, what things might you do to recover challenges you face? So maybe read some inspiring books, watch inspirational movies, songs, talk to people who have recovered, right? Those are good ideas into recovery. Okay? Hopefully we agree on the same things. Great. Okay, so moving on, guys, to exercise number 9. Today we're going to be talking about grammar. Okay? It's something really easy. It's just to express past ability. Okay? So look at the grammar box and answer the questions. So what forms of the verb follow could, manage, able, and succeeded in? Okay? 2, how do you make negatives in the past with could, able, and managed? Which sentences describe a general ability, inability, and which sentences describe success in a task in the past? Okay? So let's go ahead and read these 7 sentences. We have A, he couldn't move his arm. B, no one could help. C, she managed to deal with that pain in the end and was able to turn it into incredible art. D, she succeeded in becoming a world-renowned artist. E, he was unable to speak. F, they weren't able to do anything about it. And G, I didn't manage to see it when he was playing in theaters. Okay, so let's go ahead and answer number 1 together. It says, what forms of the verb follow could, manage, able, and succeeded in? So could, let's look at sentence A. What follows could? The verb and infinitive, right? What about manage? We have to plus the verb and infinitive, right? We can see that in example sentence C. She managed to deal. What about able? Able is also in sentence letter E, for example. He was unable to speak. Not able to speak, right? Able to speak. So, and succeeded in sentence D, she succeeded in becoming. So the verb that follows is an ing, okay? So the answer for number 1 is could is followed by an infinitive without to. Manage and able are followed by to plus an infinitive, and succeeded is followed by an ing form. Okay, so how do you make, moving on to number 2, how do you make negatives in the past with could, able, and manage? This is easy, right? So could changes to couldn't, able changes to was or were unable to, or wasn't or weren't able to. Okay, just be careful there. If we use unable, it already means not. So the verb was or were is in positive, and able changes to negative. If we use the verb to be in negative, we need to use able in positive. Okay, and then we have manage. We say didn't manage to. Now, guys, in number 3 says, which sentences describe a general ability or inability? So we have 4 sentences, okay? Let's look at letter A. He couldn't move his arm. Yes, right? That is talking about ability. What about B? No one could help. It's also mentioning some ability. Another one would be letter E. He was unable to speak. We're talking about inability there. And F, they weren't able to do anything about it. So that would be inability as well. And finally, number 4, which sentences describe success in a task in the past? So we have sentence C, she managed to deal with the pain in the end. So it's talking about being successful, managed to do something. Another sentence would be letter D, she succeeded. The sentence, the word tells us everything. And the other one would be letter G, I didn't manage to see it when it was playing in theaters. So in this case, it's talking about not being able to do something, but not succeeded in something. Okay, good. Negative success in the past. Great. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. So what we're going to do is to go back into our books to page 146, okay, to the grammar reference and practice. Now, let's go ahead and read this together. Are you there yet? So, it says expressing past ability. Could, be able to, and manage to describe ability or inability to do something when talking about specific situations or telling stories. Could expresses that something was possible in a specific situation. Couldn't shows it was impossible to do something in a specific situation. For example, he couldn't move his arm because it was trapped by a rock. Could can also be used with other words related to negatives. For example, no one could send for help. All he could do was wait. I was so nervous I could hardly say a word. Okay, so we can use could with other words related to negatives. Okay, be careful with that. Now, to talk about a specific ability to do something at a particular time in the past, use was or were able to rather than could. So was or were able is used at a particular time in the past. She managed to deal with the pain at the end, and in the end was able to turn it into great art. Okay, so there we're talking about a particular, something particular, right, in the past. Now, negatives can be made with not able to, unable to, or couldn't. For example, I wasn't able to, or I was unable to, which means the same thing, or I couldn't feel or say anything. I was in such shock. Be able to is also used with other tenses and modals where could is not possible. Okay? For example, at least, we cannot say at least we could have agreed on one movie. We could agree on one movie, no, right? At least we've been able to agree on one movie. Now, could usually describes a general ability in the past, while managed to emphasizes an ability to do something that was difficult. It isn't usually used to talk about general ideas or senses. For example, when it rained, we cannot say he couldn't catch some water. So he could catch some water. He managed to catch some water to drink. Okay? Now, manage to often goes with words and phrases such as finally, in the end, or eventually. Okay? Because it's talking about being successful. So manage to can be used in a negative sentence in a similar way to couldn't. For example, I looked for a long time, but I didn't manage to, or I couldn't find it. Okay? Now, sometimes succeeded in plus the verb in ing is used instead of managed to, but managed to is far more common. So she succeeded in making it as a professional, but it's more common to say she managed to make it as a professional. Okay? So these are really clear rules, guys. They're quite easy as well. So now let's get to practice, okay? Exercise number 1 on page 147. It says to complete the article about Aaron Rustin with one word in each space. So let's go ahead and do the first one together. It says, if the story of Aaron Rustin's escape from a canyon was remarkable, what happened next is no less so. Immediately after freeing himself, he still had to return to safety. With only one arm and still bleeding, he blanked to get down a 65-foot cliff and then walk several miles in the burning sun. So he, to get down. So remember the rules, guys. We have which verb is followed by to and infinitive. So manage to, right? Okay, so take a couple of minutes, please pause the video, work on this exercise, and once you finish, play the video again. Okay, so let's check. Luckily, he met a family walking in the valley who, in the family, remember family is a plural, so who were able to give him something to eat and drink and then look for help. Then a helicopter which was out searching for him was to pick him up. A helicopter was what? Able to pick him up. This all happened within 4 hours and saved his life. Following the accident, the park authorities only removed the rock that had trapped Aaron's arm. So the park authorities could only remove the rock that had trapped Aaron's arm by using a machine and several men. While medics were unable to save Aaron's arm, he otherwise made a full recovery and returned to full fitness. Amazingly, since then, he's been able to do pretty much all the things he did before the accident. He has since rafted down the Grand Canyon, skied down a volcano in Ecuador, and in 2011, in climbing. So what follows that? Succeeded in climbing all the mountains in Colorado that are over 14,000 feet. He also now works as a motivational speaker. Nice. Maybe some of us would be destroyed if we lost our arm, right? But we need to become inspired by that. Good. Now, moving on to exercise number 2, guys. It says to correct the error underlined in each sentence, you may need to change, add, or remove some words. Okay? So for example, number 1 says, I twisted my ankle very badly, but I still managed to walk home. So we definitely know that it's missing 2, right? I twisted my ankle very badly, but I still managed to walk home. It was really painful though. Let's do number 2 together. It says, following physical therapy, Jane and Shepherd were able, no, right? That's the first mistake, was able to walk, again with the help of a stick, right? So guys, please go ahead and do numbers 3, 4, and 5, and we'll check them together. Pause the video and play it again once you finish. Okay, so let's check. Number 3 says, doctors have been looking for a cure for motor neuron disease, but they couldn't find one yet. It says have been and then couldn't. No, right? But they haven't been able to find one yet. Number 4, after years of research, scientists believe they have finally succeeded the development. No, right? So they have finally managed to develop a treatment for diabetes which avoids the need to injecting insulin. And number 5, I wish I could meet, no, right, before he died. It's talking about different times. So we need to use a very specific time. So I wish I had been able to meet my grandfather before he died. He sounded like an amazing person. We need to be careful with times, guys, okay? That's probably the most tricky part. Okay? So let's continue. Now for exercise number 3, it says to rewrite the second sentence using the word in bold and the correct form of could, be able to, manage to, or succeeded in. Okay, so let's go ahead and do number 1 together. It says, Bethany Hamilton became a world champion surfer despite losing her arm in an accident. So this is something similar to use of English part 3, right? So let's see. Bethany Hamilton lost her arm in an accident, but still what? A world champion surfer. So she still became, but we need to use the word becoming. So, but still, we know that we need to use succeeded because the verb is an ing. So succeeded in becoming. Okay, be careful with the words given so that you know what has to be before that verb. Okay, so guys, please go ahead and do the rest by yourselves, and we'll check them as soon as you finish. Pause the video and play it again once you finish. Okay, so number 2, it says, luckily, we stopped the bleeding and he was fine. We were able to stop the bleeding and he was fine, right? Because the verb is in infinitive. Number 3, after the accident, it was only because of that surgery that he didn't lose his eyesight. So he damaged his eye in the accident, but the surgeon, was able to save his eyesight. Good. Number 4, she lost most of her hearing after the accident, but she seems to be back to normal now. So she's recovered really well, considering she, in the past, she couldn't hear a thing after the accident, okay? So that's how we know we need to use couldn't. Excellent. So moving on to the last exercise of today, let's go to exercise number 10. And it says to work in pairs and are all the sentence endings in 1, 2, 3 correct? Okay, so let's go over each and every one of them, okay? So number 1 says, after I recovered from the illness, A, I could see perfectly well in front of me, but I couldn't see anything to the side. Is that a correct or incorrect sentence? That is correct, right? We're talking about the past in both structures. Now what about B? After I recovered from the illness, I was able to see perfectly well in front of me, but I wasn't able to see anything to the side. That is also correct. So C, let's look at C. After I recovered from the illness, I managed to see things perfectly well in front of me, but I didn't succeed to see anything to the side. That is incorrect, right? Because succeed is followed by in and the verb in ing, right? So I didn't succeed in seeing anything to the side. That would be the correct structure. Number 2, following the accident, she couldn't walk to begin with, but she could learn again since then. No, right? That doesn't sound right. It would be she couldn't walk to begin with, but she was able to learn again since then. Okay? And B and C are correct. Following the accident, she was unable to walk to begin with, but she's been able to learn again since then. And following the accident, she wasn't able to walk, but she's managed to learn again since then. Now, number 3, he wrote a book about his experiences and managed to get it published. That is correct, right? Because it's talking about something that is complete. He wrote a book about his experiences and succeeded in getting it published. It is also grammatically correct. And finally, he wrote a book about his experience and could get it published. That is incorrect. It would have to be and was able to get it published. Okay, so that would be it. Be careful with the grammar structures. Be careful with how the time tenses are ordered as well. Okay, guys. So before we leave, your homework for next class, for next session, is to answer workbook pages 110, 111, and 113. Okay, it's 3 pages. Be careful. It's not to answer page 112. It's only 110, 111, and 113. Okay, all of those exercises, because those were the ones that we talked about and we went over today in class. Okay, so make sure you work on them. Okay, guys, this is the end of today's class. Hopefully everything was clear. We still ask for you guys to stay home, to stay safe, to follow all the rules and all the indications that we have been given to you, so that everything can work out as expected. Okay, guys, please stay safe, stay home, and work on all these assignments. Okay, goodbye. See you next class.